everyone, and welcome back to the Aesthetic and Wellness Edge. I'm your host, Bethany Gifford, and this show is where we dive into the real world stories, strategies, and challenges that are shaping the aesthetic and wellness industry. On today's episode is a really great one. I've been really looking forward to this because we are going to be joined by somebody who has not only built one of the most recognized med spas in New York City, but has also navigated the journey all the way through private equity acquisition. But first, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by New Era Intel. At New Era Intel, we help medical spas, dermatology clinics, and plastic surgery practices who are struggling with inconsistent patient retention, underutilized CRM systems, and manual systems that hold back your clinic's growth potential so they can finally increase quality repeat bookings, streamline operations with AI automation, and grow predictable monthly revenue. With the right systems and strategy, they're able to create a premium, seamless patient experience while freeing up their team to focus on what they do best. If you would like to take your business to the next level, head over to neweraintel.com to get started.
My guest today is Bill Tobin, co-founder of Tribeca Med Spa, longtime industry leader and now private equity partner, helping other practices scale, prepare for exit, and thrive in a consolidating market. Bill, welcome to the show.
Bethany, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. You launched Tribeca Med Spa back in 2006, when this industry was still very much in its infancy. What did you see the opportunity back then, and what was kind of the vision you were building towards?
Yeah, 2006 was very early. And back then there was, well, first off, the market, what I liked about the market was that there was a lot of innovation that was taking place. So things were in its infancy, so it had a long runway, and it had high profit margins. So those two things coupled together just, gave a good forecast for, 10, 20 years of good solid growth.
Did you have any experience like in the aesthetic industry, or were you just kind of business minded for it?
I didn't have experience in the aesthetics industry. I was in the orthopedic business for about 15 years before entering into the aesthetic space. And I just saw it as an entrepreneurial, venture that looked very promising, and it's kind of a side hustle in the very beginning, and turned into a flourishing business, bigger than I expected it to be.
Absolutely. I mean, looking back over the last 20 years, I guess it would be now, what do you think kind of contributed the most to the longevity and reputation of Tribeca Med Spa?
Well, we always had, two things right off the bat in mind, which was that our employees and our clients were number one. They were basically on equal footing. We really valued our relationships with our employees, and we also really value our relationship with our clients. We've always really put a lot of emphasis on training, name brand technology that's been proven. We're never first to market on anything. We like to wait and see and make sure that things are safe and that the outcomes match, the client's expectations, and those things, and just basically never cutting corners, and always kind of staying true to our vision and mission of providing high end services with real results.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, every practice has to kind of survive some storms in the beginning, especially just starting out. And you guys, 2006 was right around before the 2008 recession. So how did that kind of affect, New York's aesthetic world, and how did you kind of weather that?
The dark days, yeah. Well, we had a hockey stick curve in the very beginning of growth. We came out of the chute really growing faster than we expected, and it was so we had maybe, I think, the recession started like 2008. So we had about a year and a half or 2 years of good solid growth, and then literally it was like somebody pulled the rug out from underneath us. And New York City was hit very hard during that time, because so many of our clients work in the finance sector, and the finance sector was hit really hard back then.
Yeah.
So the good news was my orthopedic business, and my partner was an orthopedic surgeon, and I was on the business side of it, and we were both thriving during that time. That we had great years in our business at that point, so we had the pockets to withstand the downturn. And we saw several of our neighbor competitors go out of business during that time. And there was definitely, it was every single month there was a capital call, between the two of us. We didn't let any of our employees go, but there was a capital call every month. So it was definitely a little bit scary. But we felt the pulse of the business coming back not too long after the recession started, maybe 5 months in, 6 months in, and the phone started to ring, and people were starting to come back. People wanted to get back to the treatments that they were having. So I think it probably ended in 2009, and we kind of hit that hockey stick curve again once the recession ended. It was probably a 3 month window where things were wishy-washy. Our capital calls kept getting smaller, and then we were off to the races again.
Yeah. I know we work with a lot of med spas now that obviously were not around during that time, but they were around during the COVID moment. And, it
Yeah.
was very similar for people. We saw a lot of med spas, do pretty well because they had been doing well prior. But a lot of the new ones, they lost out and they couldn't sustain, because nobody was getting anything done. But then afterwards, after everybody went to Zoom for their businesses,
Yeah.
staring at their faces, realizing, oh, wow, that's what I look like. It was kind of
Like
a med
looking in the
spa
mirror all
boom
day
after
long.
COVID. I know. We're
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, all these things. So that's really cool to kind of see, the prior recession and then kind of comparable to the COVID.
Well, we
So,
definitely learned a lot from the 2008 recession that bled over to help us survive the COVID, downturn. I think the COVID downturn was definitely more dramatic than the recession was. I mean, we were mandated to close, so our doors were closed. I mean, during the recession, we stayed open. At one point during the recession, we were actually doing free facials. I
wow.
had a full staff that was, if we had open time, we were calling clients back that had been in there several times, and we're like, listen, we'd love to have you come back in. And we did a bunch of free facials, and clients to this day that still come to our med spa, 20 years in, remember, how we treated them during that time. And, we took care of the clients, and at the same time, it was taking care of the employees. The employees, they don't want to sit idle. They want to be doing something. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, that definitely, bled over to the experience that we had definitely bled over to us succeeding after COVID and withstanding the COVID downturn.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge testament to just team and culture, that you guys grew. I mean, obviously you guys have grown and sustained and flourished. And I mean, scaling in Manhattan, gosh, that is no easy task. The competition there is intense. We work with a couple people
Yeah.
there, and it's very high scaled, and the expectations are extremely high from clients. So, what did that kind of take for you to build a team and culture that consistently performed at that kind of top level?
Well, like I said, during the recession, I don't think we laid anybody off. We had a small staff because we'd only been open for a year and a half at that point, or 2 years at that point. During COVID, we did have to furlough a significant number of our employees, but we did keep a bunch of key employees hired. And we also did a lot of team building events. I mean, even while our employees were furloughed, we still communicated weekly. And we would have, it was maybe not every week, but certainly every other week, we would have a company happy hour on Zoom. And we would all get on there with a glass of wine and talk about what's going on in our lives, and talk about looking forward to getting back to some type of reality. New York City was hit pretty hard from COVID. And I mean, literally, I remember in the very beginning days driving down the West Side Highway, and where you would normally take 45 minutes to an hour to get from the top of Manhattan to the bottom of Manhattan, I would be there in 15 minutes and maybe past 10 cars. It was
Wow,
literally like something out of The Walking Dead. It was very
that's so
bizarre.
creepy.
Yeah, it was very
I can't
creepy.
imagine that in New York. That would have been wild.
No, Oh, yeah, there was tumbleweeds blowing around
Oh,
the
wow.
streets.
I know that is
Yeah.
apocalyptic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well,
But
I mean, you
we took
guys,
that time to focus. We took that time to focus on some things that the business needed. Um, we we built a new website. We built a new e-commerce platform. Um, we had a new inventory management program. We did an enormous amount on social media. We were on social media at least twice a day. Um,
Yeah.
we did a lot of give back campaigns. Um, so there was so many people that, and I can't remember what our slogan was, but we had some, basically the first responders, we would put together care packages and send it to Lenox Hill Hospital to, the nurses that were all on staff. And then we did a bunch of contests for them. So we did makeovers, once, the COVID ended and we were back to business, we had several winners of different contests that we put on, and it was pretty well received. And we had we built up a decent following during COVID. There's a lot of people that really, leaned in on social media, and that definitely helped us.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely speaks to your business sense, and client facing moment. That's hitting
Yeah,
all different areas, getting creative, and a lot of the times it's all about creativity. Like, what are we going to do next? Like, how do we
right.
just retain and keep the patient? And that really goes testament, outside of COVID, but just for any practice, for growth and stuff. I mean, you guys achieved, I know we had talked a little bit about, how quickly you guys had grown year after year in a very mature market. What kind of strategies would you say that were most critical to kind of driving the level of performance that you guys had that eventually allowed you guys to get where you're at?
Well, we've always been very transparent with our employees as to how they're performing against their peers in our med spa, and then performing on a regional basis and a national basis, how they stack up, and looking at different metrics. We use an outside practice consultant group that kind of goes through all of our metrics and helps benchmark us against other New York City uh, med spas and dermatology offices, as well as on a national level. So we can see where we are on retention level, um, product sales ratio to service sales, repeat clients, how we're doing on all of our consultations, and uh, what percentage we're closing of our consultations, and how often that person comes back. So we've always been very transparent with our employees so that they can see exactly how it is, and how they stack up and where they need to improve, and where we can applaud their success. I mean, oftentimes they're outperforming all of their peers, and then things ebb and flow with employees. So they'll do really well for 2 years, and then all of a sudden their product sales. It used to be 13% of every dollar they brought in was a product sale, and then they're all of a sudden down to 8. And it's just a matter of reminding, reteaching, taking some of those moments. And the other thing is really just trying to be where your customer needs you to be. So, for example, online booking. We went for so long without online booking. And when we finally brought online booking in, I think online booking is now maybe close to 30 or 40% of our bookings. So it not just does it free up the time for the front desk, but it just makes the client's life easier. We opened later hours, so we're open till 8 o'clock. We open earlier. We're open at 9 o'clock now. We finally opened up on Sundays. Just trying to be
Wow.
where our client needs us to be with the hours to make it convenient for them.
Yeah, I mean, that really appeals to the 9 to 5ers, that can't take time off during the day. They can't come in at lunch, they got to do
Yeah,
after work or
exactly.
weekends. So that's huge. That's huge. I haven't
Yeah,
heard of a
I
lot
mean
of
our
places that
busiest
Sunday. So
yeah our busiest hours are 4 p.m. to close for
I bet.
sure, and that's just
Absolutely.
because everybody is trying to get a treatment in right after work.
Totally. For sure. Well, I know a lot of people are going to want to know, tuning into this episode, about the private equity sales part. We have a lot of
Hmm.
people wondering, and a lot of people that are almost there, but not quite. And so one of the most unique parts of your story that we had talked about was not one, but two different sales processes that you had gone through at the point that you had reached. You had
Yeah.
kind of mentioned, the first one didn't work out in your favor, but that you had learned a lot. Um, what did that kind of experience teach you about preparing for the business for acquisition?
Well, it's interesting. The first, well, let me just even back up prior to that because up until I'd say 2020, there was crickets. Nobody was buying med spas that were in existence. There was no private equity play to buy med spas. At least nobody was knocking on our door. And my partner and I, we were at that point, we're 15 years into the business and we're wondering what is our exit strategy? I mean, how do we roll up and get out of this business? And at that time, our thought was, well, we're going to need to have multiple med spas to do it because no private equity group is interested in one location. They want two locations or three locations. But that dynamic has changed. I think what happened was the med spas realized that it's such a fragmented market, and the majority of the med spas out there are individual med spas or maybe two med spas, and they need to roll all of those up. But there's no big groups to go out and buy in the med spa market. So so like I said, initially we weren't sure what our exit plan was going to be, but we realized we needed to open up another med spa, and that's what led us to okay, let's get to med spa number two. And quickly thereafter, we started to get phone calls, and we got a phone call from an early PE group that was inexperienced in buying into the med spa space, but knew that that's where they wanted to be. And they came in, and we had lunch, and basically talked some general numbers as to how we were doing. And they gave me a verbal offer that we think that this is probably where you would be in the sales process. And I went to my partner with it, and he said, we're not ready to sell. We're not ready to sell. And I said, I know we're not ready to sell, but we don't know what we don't know. So let's go through the process and learn from these guys. And maybe the offer, will stay where it is, and and maybe this is an exit strategy for us. I mean, but we weren't sure, so we decided to move forward with the process. We signed an LOI with them, and we were going to go into the due diligence phase, and basically it was a pressure test for us. That's how I looked at it. This is a great way to pressure test our business and to learn what we're going to need to know to make a successful exit. And it probably took 6 weeks or so of them digging into the numbers to realize, one, that my books were a mess. Things were not consistent across the board in terms of revenue and expenses. We just didn't have, we were run really like a mom and pop shop, for the longest time. I mean, the most important thing was uh, keeping the lights on, keeping the employees happy, and a dividend check every quarter. And that's, we weren't thinking exit. So our books were a little bit of a mess. We had a POS system that was very antiquated, not user friendly. And that's a big lift for any organization. If you don't have a good POS system, it's hard to scale something. And if somebody comes in to buy your business, they're going to need to change that POS system and put something in place that allows them to scale and have real transparency into your business. So I quickly learned that those are the two big things that were lacking in my business from this private equity firm, and they revised their offer, and I basically said, okay, great, let's just go our separate ways. Maybe we'll talk again in a year or 2 years, but I'm going to fix these problems. And
Yeah.
essentially that was my mission, was to turn things back around, so that it would look appetizing to the next opportunity that came by.
Absolutely. I mean, we have a lot of people that we come across, in our business that are wanting to sell, but
Mhm.
they don't know what, big holes are devaluing their practice, what they're looking at. So that's really good advice. If somebody was going to come to you and say, I want to sell in the next 3 to 5 years, what kind of steps would you say that they need to take to like maximize their valuation?
Well, first off, like I said, my biggest issue was our finances. So I would make sure that your finances are in good order, and that you pulled out any personal expenses that you're putting through the company and you make it real business numbers that somebody can easily understand and easily see. And they want to see a very stable business. I mean, things, over 12 months, there's a very, we've gotten very used to the cycle of 12 months, and July and August is much slower. September, the first week or 10 days is slow, but then after that, all the way up until Christmas is very busy. We're slow in the beginning of January. Things pick up in February, pick up in March, April. We're back to the races again, all the way up until June. And it's every single year. It's the same pattern. So they're going to want to see several years of finances that show a similar story so that they have something that they can rely on in terms of cash flow. And they know that, you have a business that's somewhat mature that sees that cycle, and you need to understand that cycle. So that's certainly one. Um, Having a strong management team. I mean, I have always been of the mindset that I'm trying to replace myself. So I'm not a provider in my business. I don't inject, I don't do facials, thank goodness, or any lasers, and nobody wants me touching their face. That's for sure. Um, so, you need a strong management team, and I don't come with, the private. So a lot of providers out there or med spas out there are owned by somebody that's doing a big portion of the revenue,
Yeah.
which will be a
About
different story for
70%.
them. They're 70%. Is that right? Yeah. So for me, it was a little bit of a different story, being that I'm the business guy behind it. Um, so you really want to have a strong management team. I think that you should have a standard operating procedure booklet, basically a user guide to your business. I mean, somebody buys your business and they want a user guide. Okay, this is how we start the day. This is how we end the day. Here's a list of our procedures and the steps in our procedures, something that's repeatable. When we bring on an employee and we provide them, not just our human resources employee manual, but we provide them a step-by-step procedure manual. And this is how we do things. So if, client A sees two or three different people, they're getting a very similar treatment.
Yeah.
And I think that any group that comes in to buy you, they're going to want to have that operating manual in place. Um, and like I said, good management. I mean, I'm always trying to replace myself. I don't want it to be that I need to be there every day. I want to have a strong manager that can handle things, and an assistant manager that can back up that manager, and well-trained front desk that can help train the next employee, and well-trained injectors and estheticians that can help train, when we add people, or if somebody goes away on maternity leave, or if we're hiring a new person that can help train and, get that person up to speed.
That's one big thing. It's funny you say that. Working, I've worked in derm and plastics for over a decade, and we had about 44 women that I managed. And I'm telling you, the amount of people that got babies, like they were just, they
Oh
were
my
just
goodness.
popping out. We were just having whole families exploding, which is a beautiful thing, but you kind of have a backup
Right.
because
We've
it's
had
gonna happen.
we have three employees out on maternity leave right now.
I'm telling you, it's more
And
common
there's
than people
something in
think.
the water in Tribeca right now. So if you come to Tribeca, be careful if you're drinking the water.
You got it, folks. Do not drink the water at Tribeca. That's crazy. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, after successfully selling Tribeca Med Spa, you kind of stayed on with the private equity group. So how has your
Mhm.
role shifted since the sale, and what's that day to day look like now for you?
So the first thing that was paramount to the PE group was that the wheels don't fall off the bus.
Mm.
So they want to make sure that what they've just purchased is going to continue on the same trajectory that it was on. Um, and that was those were my marching orders in the beginning. It's like, Bill, business as usual. We want you to stay on and do everything that you're doing. We want to continue to see the growth. So that's really where I focused my efforts in the last
Mm.
6 months, which, in all honesty, if you have a well-run business that's already well managed, it's not a big lift to keep that same momentum going. So I no longer needed to have the hat on that was, okay, I'm selling this business. I need to provide all of these numbers. I've got lawyers asking me questions and finance people asking me questions every day. Those problems were no longer mine. I didn't have any of those problems. Obviously, once the sale goes through, now
Yeah.
it's just time to basically integrate with the group. So it's changing over bank accounts, changing over vendor accounts, handling, basically creating new logins and getting health insurance transferred over and the malpractice transferred over, and basically all of that back end stuff was really kind of really the first 90 to 120 days was assimilating with their business practice and their new bookkeeper and CFO, and keeping the employees happy. So now I'm, I guess, 8 months into this, and my focus now is still keep the wheels on the bus. That's for sure. I think that'll be my focus for in perpetuity. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
goal. I want the business to thrive for them. I want my employees to do well, and that's it. It's important to keep the wheels on the bus and keep the business and the momentum going, and keep employee morale high. And they Eagle Merchant came in and they didn't want big change for my employees. I mean, they bought a business that they liked, so there was no big changes needed. What they just wanted to see was that employee morale stayed high, the employees could stay focused on providing great services, and we've done just that. I mean, I think that since they've had us, we have two locations. One has grown close to 20%, and the other one is up somewhere between 15 and 20% during that same period of time.
It's
So
incredible growth for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I think a lot of
we're
the
seeing
worry that people have is they're going to come in and gut my baby that I grew. They're going to just
no,
come in, destroy it, rebrand, do whatever.
no.
And I think a lot of people's fear kind of bases around that.
Oh, just the opposite. It's funny. Perhaps I thought the same thing early on, but I quickly learned. I mean, that just goes against all common sense. I mean, they're buying something that they want it to thrive. They're not coming in to pull every single dollar out of it. They want to feed it, and most private equity groups. I mean, this isn't their first rodeo, so they know you can't starve a business and expect it to continue to chug along. I mean, you have to keep it fueled up, and they've done just that. I mean, they've done nothing but provide additional resources and give us another point of view on things. Fortunately, the group that we partnered with, they have a very similar mindset. High end procedures. We're not a discount house. Um, we have the same um, client centric and employee centric mindset, um, best in class procedures, and they provide a lot of insight for us, like things that we weren't doing that they were doing and having great success at, and they've also learned a lot from us. I mean, we have a lot in place that they learned from. So I think it's just been a really good back and forth. I think
Mm,
if anything, it's going to really help our business grow even faster than we were doing on our own. So,
that's exciting. That's really exciting.
and the stress is off. I mean, that's one other thing I can say about post deal. We were in a good place. I mean, we were doing very well, so it's not like I was sweating payroll every month. Um, but it is very nice. I mean, I no longer do payroll. I no longer have to do HR. I'm no longer wearing 10 hats. I mean, I'm really
Uh,
wearing just a couple of hats. So it makes it a little bit easier to focus on the things that they want, and I get to hand off a lot of the things that I really didn't like about being in the business. That is no fun. So it's
Definitely
been
a
good.
perk
It's been very
for
good.
sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, just kind of in closing, if you could like start over today, from the ground floor, knowing everything that you know now, what would you have done differently?
Well, so, I've had a long road in this. There's been a lot of ups and downs. I mean, we had the Great Recession, and then there was a great period of double-digit growth all the way up until 2020 when the pandemic hit. I mean, every year we were up 15 to 20%. I probably would have opened up a couple more spas sooner than I did. I took a sabbatical in the middle of all that time. I had sold my orthopedic business in 2014, and I spent 5 years on a traveling sabbatical. And during that time, it was nice to get a nice dividend check every month, but I definitely didn't have my eye on the ball like I did
Mm.
after my sabbatical and pre-sabbatical. So I probably would have opened a couple more up. I would have been a lot more in tune with the financial end of it. That definitely was not my strong suit, and I learned from that first private equity uh, failure going through that how important that was. So I would really make sure that I was buttoned up on that. The other piece that I would say, something that I've learned along the way is in this business, there's so much new technology that's coming out all the time, and you can't just jump on to new technology without making sure that it's vetted, proven, and on top of that, the company that you partner with, you want to make sure that they're going to be around for the long term and that they have a long term vision as well with a solid marketing platform behind them. Because if they're doing national marketing, it's only going to help you on the local level. And I mean, products like, Morpheus 8, when you get off the airport in LA, I think there's a huge sign that has a Morpheus 8 sign. It was one of the first things I remember the last time I was out there. And just companies like that. I mean, early on, I can think back to the cool sculpting days. I mean, early on, there was several devices that came out that were really good at body contouring, but cool sculpting was by far and away number one because they just had a strong marketing machine behind them. So
Yeah.
picking the right company is very important, and we've definitely picked the wrong company a few times. Things that have gone out of business or quickly, was a fad. So just learning from those mistakes and, not repeating those is, you know, always important.
Great advice. I know we have
Yeah.
a lot of people that we work with that have definitely made some wrong partnerships when it comes to devices and products and everything that they bring in. So this has
Yeah.
been really
Brand
good.
name
And
technology is important. And clients these days, they do their research. So
yes, they do.
they're calling, they know what it is they want half the time before they even come in the door. They certainly know the name of the product that they're looking for. So, you know, you want to partner with somebody that's got some legs. I would not go for buying any bargain basement technology that comes from um, some country that's just that doesn't have the long term vision and mission and national acceptance.
That's great. Well, Bill, thank you so much. I mean, your story is the perfect mix of, your entrepreneurial grit. You've been operating at an excellence level, and then just your kind of strategic foresight. It's a valuable blueprint
So
for owners who are growing today, thinking about the future, just
yeah,
wanting to mimic the success. So thank you so
yeah,
much.
absolutely. I mean, the timing is right. So the timing is right. You never know how long the window is going to open when the private equity groups are looking to buy these types of businesses. So I think now is a good time to get a high valuation. And um, for us, the timing was spot on.
Awesome. Well, for anybody who's wanting to learn more, because I'm sure there's going to be tons more questions, how can they connect with you and kind of explore, acquisition opportunities? What's the best way for
No,
them to
sure.
reach you?
Sure. Just send me an email. I still have my original email, which will at some point be changing, but it's bill at tribecamedspa.com. And I'd be happy to give you any insight and tell you a little bit more about my story and how we got there and help you avoid any pitfalls or anything I can do to help you. I'm happy to share.
That's amazing. Well, thanks again for sharing your journey and insights. And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Aesthetic and Wellness Edge. Be sure to subscribe for more conversations with leaders like this who are shaping the future of aesthetics. Until next time, I'm Bethany Gifford. We will see you on the next episode.